On Christmas, I heard my daughter tell the guests. She only shows up when there's free food. She's never truly been part of us. I quietly stood up and left, but left the catering receipt under her plate. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I never thought I'd hear those words from my own daughter's mouth. Mom only shows up when there's free food, Camila said with a dismissive laugh. She's never been really present in our lives. The Christmas dinner table fell silent. My fork hovered midway to my mouth as the words echoed in my ears. The beautiful roast turkey, the gleaming silverware, the expensive wine in crystal glasses, all of it blurred as I felt 20 pairs of eyes dart between Camila and me. I'd spent the morning at the caterer's, selecting each dish personally. I'd gotten up at 5 a.m. to make sure everything would be perfect for my daughter's Christmas dinner. And now, at 66 years old, I sat frozen in my chair as she reduced me to nothing more than a hungry intruder. Cheryl. My sister-in-law touched my arm gently. Are you okay? I set my fork down carefully, making sure it didn't clatter against the fine china I'd bought Camila last Christmas. My hands were shaking, but I kept my face composed. 66 years of practice had taught me how to swallow pain without showing it. Excuse me, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the awkward coughs and sudden interest everyone took in their food. Camila didn't even look at me as I stood up. She was already laughing about something else with her husband Brad, who never missed a chance to roll his eyes whenever I spoke. Their 10-year-old twins were absorbed in their phones under the table. Another boundary I wasn't allowed to comment on. I walked to my purse hanging by the coat rack and pulled out the catering receipt I'd tucked away. $3,782 for a dinner for 24 people. Nearly a month of my Social Security check. I told Camila I'd handle the food costs as my Christmas gift to everyone. What I didn't tell her was that I'd picked up extra shifts at the senior center gift shop to make it happen. I returned to the table, excused myself again, though no one was really listening anymore, and slipped the folded receipt under Camila's plate. She wouldn't find it until later, but that was fine. I didn't need to see her reaction. As I walked toward the front door, memories flooded back. Camila at 8, when her father left us and I took on a second job cleaning offices at night. Me falling asleep at her school plays, exhausted from working 16-hour days. The time I sold my mother's jewelry to pay for Camila's first semester of college. The cold December air hit my face as I stepped outside. No one called after me. No one came to check if I was okay. I fumbled with my car keys, my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. I thought of all the Christmases, birthdays, and celebrations I'd financed over the years. The graduation party I'd catered when Camila finished law school. The engagement dinner when she and Brad announced they were getting married. Their wedding, where I'd emptied my modest retirement savings to give my only child the day she deserved. The twins' birthdays, the anniversary celebrations, the Easter brunches, all paid for by the mother who only showed up for free food. I started my 15-year-old Toyota, the same car I'd kept running because every time I thought of replacing it, some family expense came up instead. As I pulled away from Camila's beautiful suburban home, I caught a glimpse of the festive lights through the bay window. Everyone was laughing again. The party continued without missing a beat. My apartment was dark and quiet when I arrived. I hadn't bothered decorating this year. I'd been too busy helping Camila string lights around her house, set up the tree, and wrap presents for the twins. I sat in my recliner, the one luxury I'd allowed myself after working for 47 years, and finally let the tears come. Not just for tonight, but for all the years of giving everything I had, only to be dismissed as an obligation, a burden, the old woman who wasn't really present. My phone buzzed. Probably my sister-in-law checking on me. Or maybe, just maybe, it was Camila calling to apologize. I looked at the screen. It was Camila, all right. The text message read, "How could you embarrass me like that? We'll talk about this later." I turned off my phone and closed my eyes, wondering what I had done wrong in raising a daughter who could be so blind to my love. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying Camila's words over and over. Mom only shows up when there's free food. She's never been really present. By 5 a.m. I gave up trying to rest and made myself a cup of tea. My small kitchen felt emptier than usual. I'd given Camila my good china set when she and Brad bought their house 5 years ago. "You should have nice things for when you entertain," I told her. Keeping only a few mismatched mugs and plates for myself, I opened the drawer where I kept my financial records, an old-fashioned habit my own mother had taught me. Inside were neatly labeled folders: medical, utilities, taxes, and one thick folder labeled family events. With trembling hands, I opened it and spread the contents across my kitchen table. The evidence of my invisible sacrifices lay before me in black and white. There was the receipt for Camila's wedding, $24,760. I told her it was $15,000 because I didn't want her to feel guilty. I'd taken out a second mortgage on my small condo to cover the difference. I was still paying it off. Next to it, the statement from my retirement account showing the $12,000 withdrawal for Brad's surprise 40th birthday party 3 years ago. "It needs to be special, Mom," Camila had insisted. "All his colleagues have had these amazing milestone parties." I'd nodded and smiled, not telling her that taking that money early had incurred penalties I couldn't really afford. The twins' elaborate 10th birthday last summer. $3,150 for a theme park rental. The receipt still had my note scribbled in the margin. "Cancel dental implant appointment, reschedule after October?" I never did reschedule. My missing molar wasn't visible unless I smiled too widely, which I trained myself not to do. There were dozens more receipts. Thanksgiving dinners, Easter brunches, graduation parties for Camila's stepchildren from Brad's first marriage. The Mother's Day lunch that, ironically, I had paid for myself because Brad's budget is tight this month with the boat payments. My hand shook as I calculated the total. Over the past 15 years, I'd spent more than $78,000 on family celebrations. Money that should have been my retirement security. Money that had bought memories where I was always thanked perfunctorily, if at all, and then gently shuffled to the side. The sun was rising now, casting long shadows across my modest living room. The furniture was at least 20 years old. The carpet was worn thin in places. I'd always told myself it didn't matter. What mattered was giving Camila and her family the life they deserved. My phone, which I'd turned back on out of habit, buzzed with a text. "Camila again. We need to talk about what happened." The caterer called to confirm the New Year's Eve party. "I told them you'd handle it as usual." As usual. The word stung worse than her insult at dinner. The New Year's Eve party. I'd almost forgotten. Another $2,000 at least, for Camila and Brad to entertain their lawyer friends and Brad's business partners. People who barely acknowledged me when I was introduced as Camila's mom. My retirement account statement from last month lay on the edge of the table. I pulled it closer. After all these years of working first as a secretary, then as an office manager, and now part-time at the senior center gift shop, I had $43,267 to my name. Enough for maybe 3 years if I was extremely careful. After that, just Social Security. I'd postponed retiring at 65 because Camila had mentioned wanting to renovate their master bathroom. "It would be such a help if you could contribute, Mom. You know how important it is for Brad to keep up appearances with his clients." Another memory surfaced. Last year's Christmas dinner, also catered at my expense. Brad's mother Judith had been there, showing off pictures of her cruise to Alaska. "It's so important to enjoy your golden years," she'd said, glancing at me with barely concealed pity. "Brad makes sure I can travel and enjoy life." Judith had never worked a day in her life. Her husband had left her well provided for, and Brad, her only son, supplemented her income generously. Meanwhile, I worked 20 hours a week at the gift shop, standing on my arthritic knees, to afford the family contributions Camila regularly expected. The phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was Camila. "Mom, I can't believe you walked out like that," she said without preamble. "And that receipt? Really? Is that your way of saying you can't help with the parties anymore? Because Brad and I have already invited everyone for New Year's." I opened my mouth to respond with my usual reassurance, the words already forming. "Of course I'll help, sweetheart. Don't worry about a thing." But something stopped me. Maybe it was the receipt spread before me. Maybe it was the memory of sitting alone at the Christmas table, hearing my own daughter dismiss my entire existence. Or maybe, at 66, I was finally tired of being invisible. "Camila," I said quietly, "we need to talk about more than just the New Year's party." "What's that supposed to mean?" Her voice sharpened. "Is this about what I said?" I was just joking, Mom. You're always so sensitive. The familiar guilt began to creep in, but this time I pushed it away. It's about everything, Camila. Everything. I hadn't expected Camila to show up at my door. Yet there she was, still wearing her Christmas sweater, her face flushed with anger. It was barely 9 a.m. You humiliated me, she said, pushing past me into my apartment. Mrs. Henderson found the receipt when she was helping clear the table. She asked if I was having financial problems. No, hello. No, are you okay after leaving abruptly? Just straight to how my actions had affected her image. I'm sorry Mrs. Henderson saw the receipt, I said quietly, closing the door. That wasn't my intention. Camila scanned my living room, her eyes landing on the financial papers still spread across my small dining table. Her expression shifted from anger to something more calculating. What's all this? She asked, walking over to examine the documents. I didn't stop her. Maybe it was time she saw the reality I'd been hiding. Financial records, I answered simply. I was reviewing my situation this morning. She picked up the statement showing the withdrawal for Brad's 40th birthday. Is this why you're upset? Because you spent money on us? That was your choice, Mom. Nobody forced you. The dismissive way she said it made something crack inside me. It was my choice, I agreed, my voice steadier than I expected. Just like it's my choice to tell you I can't help with the New Year's party. Camila's head snapped up. What? You can't be serious. Everyone's already been invited. I'm very serious. I moved to the table and picked up my retirement statement. I have $43,000 to my name, Camila. That's all. After 47 years of working. She shrugged. So? You've got Social Security. And it's not like you have expensive tastes. That casual dismissal of my financial reality stung worse than her comment at Christmas dinner. As if my modest lifestyle was a personality quirk rather than a necessity born from decades of putting her needs first. I have Social Security because I can't afford to retire, I clarified. I'm still working because every extra dollar I've earned has gone to family events. Your family events. Camila rolled her eyes. Here we go. The martyr routine. It's not a routine. My voice rose, surprising us both. I've given everything I could to make sure you had the best. I worked 2 jobs after your father left. I put you through college. I helped with the down payment on your house. That was your job as a parent, she countered. And now you're throwing it in my face because I made one little joke? It wasn't just a joke, Camila. You said I only show up for free food. She laughed harshly. Well, you're never really present, are you? Always sitting quietly in the corner at parties. Never joining conversations. Even with the twins, you barely engage. The injustice of her words left me momentarily speechless. I thought of all the times I tried to connect with my grandchildren, only to be told I was doing it wrong, or that they were too busy with activities. I'm not allowed to engage, I finally said. Every time I try to have a real conversation with the twins, you or Brad interrupt. When I offer an opinion at your parties, Brad gives you that look, and you change the subject. That's ridiculous, Camila scoffed. You're just hypersensitive. Am I? Last Easter, I suggested the twins might enjoy the art class at the community center. You told everyone I was out of touch with what kids need nowadays. At Thanksgiving, when I mentioned my volunteer work at the hospital, Brad asked if we could talk about something interesting. I've been systematically silenced in your home, Camila. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Mom, you're overreacting. If you felt excluded, you should have said something. I'm saying it now, I replied, surprised by my own calmness. And I'm also saying I can't fund your parties anymore. Camila's expression hardened. So this is punishment because your feelings got hurt? No. This is me finally acknowledging reality. I gestured to the financial papers. I can't afford it, Camila. I've been pretending I could because I thought it would make you love me more. Her eyes widened. Love you more? What are you talking about? This is insane. Is it? I asked softly. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for money or help with an event, but just to check how I'm doing. Camila opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment I thought I'd broken through. Then her face hardened. I don't have time for this emotional manipulation, she said coldly. I have a family to take care of. If you won't help with New Year's, fine. I'll figure it out. But don't expect to be invited. The threat hung in the air between us. In the past, it would have devastated me enough to immediately backtrack, to empty my wallet rather than risk being excluded from my daughter's life. Not today. That's your choice, I said quietly. But for the record, Camila, I've always loved you more than anything in this world. I just can't keep proving it with my bank account. She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. When you're ready to stop being dramatic and act like a normal mother, give me a call. The door slammed behind her, rattling the few photos I had displayed on my wall. Most of them were of Camila graduating high school, at her wedding, holding the twins as newborns. The story of my life's devotion captured in faded photographs. I sat down at the table, surrounded by the paper trail of my sacrifices, and realized something profound. For the first time in decades, I had chosen myself. And it hurt like hell. 3 days after Christmas, I found myself sitting in Betty's sunroom, watching cardinals flit around her bird feeder. Betty had been my friend since we both worked at Kellerman's Insurance in the 1980s. Unlike me, she'd retired properly at 65, her children grown and independent. I still can't believe you finally stood up to her, Betty said, pouring more tea into my cup. It's about time, Cheryl. I stared into my tea. I feel terrible. Like I've failed as a mother. Betty snorted. Failed? By having boundaries? By refusing to bankrupt yourself for people who don't appreciate you. When she put it that way, it sounded so obvious. But decades of putting Camila first had rewired my brain to interpret any act of self-preservation as selfish. Camila says I'm being dramatic, I admitted. That I'm punishing her because my feelings got hurt. Betty set down her teacup with a decisive clink. That's what users always say when the supply gets cut off. She's not a user, she's my daughter, I protested weakly. She can be both, honey. Betty's voice softened. Look, I've watched you drain yourself dry for that girl for years. Remember when you couldn't come on that senior center trip to Branson because you were paying for Camila's kitchen renovation? I nodded. That trip had only been $400, but it might as well have been $4,000 for all I could afford it. And last year, when you needed dental work but put it off to help with the twins' summer camp? They needed the experience, I murmured. And what about Brad? That man has a boat, a golf club membership, and takes guy trips to Vegas, but somehow you're the one funding family parties. I had no defense for that one. Brad was a successful investment banker. He could easily afford everything I'd been paying for. The thing is, Betty continued, you've taught Camila that your role is to give until it hurts, and her role is to take without question. That's not love, Cheryl. That's exploitation. The word hit me like a slap. Exploitation. Had I really allowed myself to be exploited by my own daughter? She hasn't called since she stormed out, I said quietly. The New Year's party is in 2 days. And I keep thinking I should call her. Apologize. Offer to help. Betty leaned forward. Why? So you can work extra shifts at the senior center until Valentine's Day? So you can skip buying your heart medication again? I looked up sharply. How did you know about that? Carol at the pharmacy told me. Said you asked if you could split your pills to make them last longer. Betty's eyes were fierce with protectiveness. That's not okay, Cheryl. Your health isn't optional. Shame washed over me. I had been cutting corners with my own care for years, but hearing it laid bare made me realize how backward my priorities had become. I just don't know how to be in Camila's life if I'm not giving her what she wants, I confessed. That's because you've never tried. You've made yourself a human ATM instead of a mother with wisdom, love, and boundaries. Betty reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It's time to find out who you are besides Camila's financial backup plan. When I left Betty's house that afternoon, something had shifted inside me. I drove straight to the bank and opened a new savings account, transferring $5,000 from my checking account. Money I'd been setting aside for the European vacation Camila had been hinting she wanted to take the twins on next summer. The bank manager looked surprised when I told her what I wanted to name the account. Cheryl's Future? That's an unusual account name. It's new for me too, I admitted. But it's time. That evening I sat down with my budget and made real plans for the first time in years. Plans for me, not for Camila's family. If I was careful and worked another year, I could actually retire modestly but securely. I could finally fix that molar. I could join the senior center's trip to the Grand Canyon in April. I was in the middle of researching dental insurance when my phone rang. It was Camila. My heart jumped. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned for decades to prioritize her happiness, wanted to answer immediately, to apologize, to offer whatever she needed. Instead, I took a deep breath and let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, Camila. Mom. Her voice was tight but controlled. I've been thinking about our conversation. So have I replied, bracing myself. I understand you're upset about what I said at Christmas. It was just a joke, but I shouldn't have said it. I'm sorry. The apology surprised me, but what came next revealed its true purpose. Anyway, about New Year's. I've worked everything out with the caterer. They said we can pay half now and half after the party. I just need you to cover the first payment. It's $1,200. I can pick up the check tomorrow. My old self would have agreed immediately, relieved that Camila was speaking to me again, grateful for the crumbs of her attention. But Betty's words echoed in my mind. That's not love, Cheryl. That's exploitation. I'm sorry, Camila, but I won't be covering the catering costs, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Mom, I already told you I apologize for Christmas. Frustration etched her tone. What more do you want? I want a relationship with my daughter that isn't transactional, I answered honestly. I want to be valued for more than my checkbook. That's not fair. Brad and I are stretched thin with the house and the kids, and Brad made over $200,000 last year, I interrupted quietly. You told me that yourself when you were bragging about his promotion. Silence stretched between us, taut and uncomfortable. So that's it, Camila finally said. You're refusing to help your own family? The guilt rose up like a wave, threatening to drown my newfound resolve. But I held firm. I'm not refusing to help. I'm refusing to bankrupt myself for parties you and Brad can easily afford. I took a deep breath. I love you, Camila. I always will. But things need to change between us. Fine, she snapped. I guess we'll just cancel New Year's. I hope you're happy. She hung up before I could respond. I set the phone down, my hands trembling but my mind clear. This was going to be harder than I'd imagined. But for the first time in years, I felt something unexpected stirring in my chest. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't fear. It was hope. January passed in a silence so complete it had its own weight. No calls from Camila. No texts. No pictures of the twins. I'd check my phone each morning, my heart sinking a little more each day at the empty notification screen. I ran into my sister-in-law Sandra at the grocery store in mid-January. Her cart was full of healthy options, while mine contained the simpler fare I'd returned to now that I was budgeting properly. Cheryl, she exclaimed, genuinely pleased to see me. I've been wondering how you are. I'm doing okay, I said, surprised by how true it was. Despite the pain of Camila's silence, I'd been sleeping better. My bank account was recovering. I'd even booked that dental appointment. Sandra's expression turned sympathetic. I was so sorry about what happened at Christmas. The things Camila said. She shook her head. And now she's telling everyone you've cut her off financially because you're becoming. She hesitated. Becoming what? I prompted. Sandra looked uncomfortable. She's saying you might be showing early signs of dementia, that you're getting paranoid about money and making irrational decisions. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. That's not true, I managed to say. I know, Sandra assured me quickly. It's just, Brad's mother Judith is hosting a family dinner next week, and she's telling everyone not to mention anything about it to you because you're too fragile right now. I gripped my shopping cart tighter. So this was Camila's response, not to adjust to our new boundaries, but to paint me as mentally declining, to isolate me from the rest of the family. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Sandra touched my arm. For what it's worth, I think what you did was brave. Camila and Brad have been taking advantage of you for years. Everyone sees it, but no one says anything. Her words were both comforting and disturbing. Others had noticed the exploitation but had remained silent witnesses. That evening my phone finally rang with Camila's ringtone. My heart leapt before I reminded myself to be cautious. Hello, Camila. I answered, keeping my voice neutral. Mom, she said, her tone concerned. I've been worried about you. This wasn't what I expected. Have you? Of course. You haven't been yourself lately. First the scene at Christmas, then refusing to help with New Year's. Sandra said she saw you at the store today and you seemed confused. My grip on the phone tightened. I wasn't confused, Camila. We had a perfectly normal conversation. That's not what she said, Camila countered smoothly. She said you couldn't remember what you were shopping for. The lie was so blatant it momentarily left me speechless. Sandra had said nothing of the sort. I think you should see Dr. Morris, Camila continued. I've already called his office. They can fit you in tomorrow. You made a doctor's appointment for me? I tried to keep the anger from my voice. Without asking me first? Mom, we're concerned. Brad thinks. I don't care what Brad thinks, I interrupted, surprising myself with my firmness. I'm not confused, and I don't need a doctor's appointment. See, this hostility isn't like you, Camila said, her voice taking on a patronizing tone I'd never noticed before. The mom I know would never speak to me this way. It dawned on me then this was a power play. Camila couldn't handle my newfound boundaries, so she was attempting to undermine my autonomy by questioning my mental competence. The mom you knew let herself be used, I said quietly. That's changing now. No one used you, Camila protested. We're family. Family helps each other. When was the last time you helped me, Camila? Silence. That's what I thought, I continued. I don't need a doctor. What I need is for you to respect my decisions. Fine, she snapped, dropping the concerned act. But don't expect to see the twins anytime soon. I can't have them around someone who's becoming unstable. The threat cut deep. My grandchildren, the innocent parties in all this, were now being used as pawns. That's your choice, I managed to say, though my voice shook. But we both know there's nothing wrong with my mind. After she hung up, I called Betty in tears. She's telling people I have dementia, I sobbed. She's keeping the twins from me. Betty's outrage was immediate and fierce. That manipulative little. She caught herself. This is what happens when people like Camila don't get their way. They escalate. What do? I asked, feeling lost. I can't lose my grandchildren. Document everything, Betty advised firmly. Every conversation, every text. If she's going to play dirty, you need protection. Over the next few weeks, the family divided into camps. Brad's mother Judith hosted the dinner I wasn't invited to, where apparently my mental health was discussed as though I wasn't a real person with feelings. Some relatives, like Sandra, saw through Camila's manipulation. Others, particularly those who'd always been closer to Brad's side of the family, readily accepted that I was becoming difficult. The twins' birthday was approaching in February. Normally, I would have been deeply involved in planning, but this year my calls went unanswered. I sent cards with modest but thoughtful gifts, art supplies for Jamie, who loved to draw, and a model rocket kit for Michael, who was fascinated by space. The packages were returned unopened with a note from Brad. Given your current state, we think it's best to limit contact for now. I sat on my couch that evening, holding the rejected gifts, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was hardening into something stronger. Determination. I would not be erased from my own life. I would not let Camila's tactics make me doubt myself. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I called a lawyer who specialized in grandparents' rights. It wasn't to threaten or to sue. It was simply to understand my options, to take back some measure of control. As I waited in the lawyer's office, I caught a glimpse of myself in a decorative mirror. My back was straight. My eyes were clear and focused. I looked nothing like the confused, unstable woman Camila was describing to anyone who would listen. I looked like someone who had finally woken up. 6 months after that fateful Christmas dinner, I barely recognized my life or myself. My small apartment had been transformed. I'd finally painted the walls the soft sage green I'd always wanted, rather than keeping the landlord's stark white that Camila had insisted was more modern. The dated brown carpet had been replaced with affordable laminate flooring, paid for with money I'd been setting aside for the twins' summer camp. The furniture was still old, but now arranged to please me rather than to accommodate large family gatherings that rarely happened anyway. My collection of houseplants thrived on the windowsills. Another small joy I denied myself because Camila claimed they made the place look cluttered. But the changes went far deeper than decor. 3 months ago, I'd started a small container gardening business with Betty and another friend from the senior center. We called it Gray Thumbs, a play on green thumbs that embraced our silver hair as a badge of honor rather than something to be hidden. We started small, helping neighbors set up patio gardens and teaching container gardening classes at the community center. Word spread quickly among the retirement communities in the area. Many seniors wanted fresh herbs and vegetables, but lacked the knowledge or confidence to start. Others simply enjoyed the company and purpose our visits provided. It wasn't making me rich, but the extra income meant I could finally retire from the gift shop. More importantly, it gave me purpose and joy. My knowledge, accumulated over decades of tending my own small gardens, had value. I had value beyond my wallet. This morning I was filling small pots with herb seedlings for a workshop when my phone rang. Camila's name flashed on the screen. My heart still jumped at the sight, but the panic that once accompanied her calls had faded. "Hello, Camila," I answered, my voice calm. "Mom." She sounded tense. "I need to talk to you about something." I set down the basil seedling I was holding. "I'm listening." "Brad and I are going through some financial adjustments," she said carefully. "His company is restructuring, and they've cut back on bonuses this year." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, genuinely meaning it. "The thing is," she continued, "the twins have been accepted to that summer science program, the one at Lakeside Academy. It's a really prestigious opportunity." I waited, sensing what was coming. "The tuition is due next week. $8,000 for both of them." She paused. "I was hoping you might be able to help." 6 months ago, I would have immediately agreed, even if it meant emptying my savings. I would have seen it as my duty, my way of proving my love. "That sounds like a wonderful opportunity for the twins," I said. "But I can't provide that kind of financial help anymore, Camila." Silence stretched between us. Then, "Mom, this isn't like the parties. This is about the kids' education. Their future." "I understand that," I said. "But Brad makes a good salary, even without bonuses. If this program is important to you, you'll find a way to make it work." "I can't believe you're being so selfish," she snapped, abandoning the carefully controlled tone. "After everything we've been through." "Everything we've been through," I repeated slowly. "You mean the months of silence? The rumors about my mental health? Keeping the twins away from me?" "That was for their protection," she protested. "You were acting erratically." "No, Camila. I was setting boundaries. There's a difference." I could almost hear her recalibrating, shifting strategies. "Look, I know things have been difficult between us," she said, her voice softening. "But I miss you. The twins miss you. Maybe this could be a fresh start for all of us." The nakedness of the manipulation was almost breathtaking. She hadn't asked about my life, expressed any genuine remorse, or even acknowledged the pain her actions had caused. She'd gone straight to what she wanted, my money. "I miss the twins too," I said honestly. "And I'd love to rebuild our relationship. But it won't start with my checkbook." "Then how?" Frustration etched her voice. "Time," I replied simply. "We could meet for lunch. Just to talk. No expectations, no financial discussions. Just a mother and daughter trying to understand each other better." The lengthy pause told me this wasn't the answer she'd been hoping for. "Fine," she finally said. "Saturday at Ruby's? Noon." "I'd like that," I replied, surprised she'd agreed. After we hung up, I sat with my seedlings, pondering the conversation. I wasn't naive enough to believe Camila had suddenly seen the light. More likely, she was hoping lunch would be the first step in wearing down my resolve. But it was a start. My doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Betty and our small gardening group, arriving for our weekly planning meeting. I welcomed them in, serving the lemon cookies I'd baked that morning on the china dessert plates I'd kept for myself instead of giving to Camila. "Was that your daughter on the phone?" Betty asked quietly while the others admired my latest plant acquisitions. I nodded. "She wants money for the twins' summer program." When I said no, she suggested lunch instead. Betty raised an eyebrow. "Progress, I suppose." "Of a sort," I agreed. "I'm not expecting miracles." Our business partner Marlene joined the conversation. Speaking of progress, Cheryl, remember that community garden proposal you submitted to the Parks Department? They approved it. They want us to start planning the layout next month. The room erupted in excited chatter. The community garden had been my idea, converting an unused lot behind the senior center into a shared growing space where we could teach classes and provide fresh produce for the local food bank. I'd never have had the confidence to propose it a year ago. As my friends discussed soil quality and irrigation options, I found myself smiling. This was my life now, surrounded by people who valued me for my ideas, my knowledge, my friendship. Not for what I could give them. I still loved Camila deeply. I still missed the twins every day. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had changed shape, becoming something I could carry without being crushed by it. Saturday's lunch might go well, or it might be disastrous. Camila might eventually understand the new boundaries, or she might never truly accept them. I couldn't control that outcome. What I could control was my own life, my own choices, my own happiness. For 66 years, I'd believed love meant sacrifice without limits. Now I understood that real love, including self-love, required boundaries to flourish. As Betty raised her teacup in a toast to our community garden success, I joined in with my friends, these women who had become my chosen family. Outside, spring sunshine warmed my little balcony garden, where new growth pushed through the soil, persistent, resilient, reaching toward the light. Just like me,